they get rough, and if they get tough, take a drop of the hard stuff.
Hi Nigel.
Hello.
You're very welcome to a drop of the hard stuff. Thanks for coming in.
Good man, thanks for asking me.
Firstly, where were you born and brought up?
Well, I was born in Moseley, which is in Birmingham, and my parents were publicans, so I grew up in pubs all around Birmingham. So the earliest one I remember is the Monarch in Quinton. The building's still there actually, it's a listed building, but I don't think it's a pub anymore. And then we moved to Bartley Green, just down the road. That's South Birmingham, to a pub called the Bale of Hay. And then my dad took over a Catholic club called St Teresa's. As you know, all the Irish community centres were owned by the churches and stuff. Well, most of them anyway. And that was in Perry Bar, which is North Birmingham. So, grew up around there.
Where are your parents from in Ireland?
They're from a little village called Rosslea, which is in County Fermanagh, and they're both from neighbouring farms, and they come over here in the 50s. And they actually moved to London first, you know. I don't think I ever told you that. They moved to Twickenham, and they worked on the buses. My dad was the driver, and my mum was a bus conductor, which was a good job back in them days. And they lived in separate digs in West London, and then they went back home to Fermanagh and got married, and then come back, and they moved to Birmingham because I think it was a bit cheaper, and my dad knew a couple of friends that had gone to Birmingham, so he had a couple of allies there.
What was it like growing up within an Irish family in Birmingham?
That was great. But you know what? There was loads of Irish families. All the kids at school, you know, most people had an Irish connection somewhere along the line. But it was great, and you know, growing up in an Irish pub was even better because you were just surrounded by the whole culture. You know, my dad had all the songs on the jukebox, and there was a big Irish clientele from the wider Birmingham community. You know, a lot of the navvies would come in after work, and there'd be people in at night time, and my dad would have bands and stuff like that. I was exposed to it a lot, really. It was great because all my mates from school, we used to play Gaelic football, and I was always busy in the pub, but when I moved to London in my early 20s, I wanted to meet Irish people and get involved in Gaelic football. And it's a tough sport to pick up if you've never played it before, but I joined a club called Robert Emmett's, and the manager at the time, Paul Healy, he was a Fermanagh man, and so we got on well straight away. And I played with them for a lot of years, and I got the club was struggling, so I'd always get a place in the team by default, but I got fit quite quickly and you know, kept my place in the team. And then they folded, but we won a junior championship with them, and we beat a team called Dulwich Harps. And shortly after, Robert Emmett's folded, and I joined Dulwich Harps, and won a couple of championships with them. I must have played about 13 years, but it was brilliant. You know, that was my Sundays sorted out. You know, and when championship came around, no one drank, and it would be, you know, training Tuesdays and Thursdays, and if there was no game on the Sunday, you'd train on a Saturday or a Sunday, and if there was a game, you'd be, you know, everyone stayed in on a Saturday night, and you'd be up to Ruislip or Greenford where the games were, and you know, we'd have a great session afterwards, and some of the pubs that were sponsoring us and that would look after us, and it was just a really, really good thing to be involved in. And you know, that whole changing room culture and the brotherhood, as you might call it, was just great to be a part of, and I loved it. My cousins play they used to play at the highest level for Fermanagh, Sean and Seamus Quigley, so they did very well, but you know, they were I'd have a long time lacing up their boots, I tell you. They were seriously good, but yeah, it was great growing up with the Irish culture. It's just different, you know, and it's something that I'm really glad that I did.
Did you spend your summer holidays in Ireland like the rest of us?
Oh God, yeah. On every single year, we never went anywhere else ever. The whole 6 weeks would be spent in Ireland in Fermanagh. Well, it was actually Clonus. Do you know Clonus? So Rosslea, just across the border, the first town you get to is Clonus, and my dad loved it in Clonus, and he, when the pub started doing well, he bought a house there, and that was our little holiday home for the whole 6 weeks. And we'd go back there, and I remember, so there'd be, in Birmingham, probably London was the same, and Manchester, there'd be all the Irish landlords knew each other, so there'd be a little Irish landlord mafia, and one of his friends would always do the relief in the pub, so he could go, and Mum would come and that, and so we'd all be packed, 8 of us into a Volvo, and you could be sat next to Dad's fishing stuff here, or a couple of times I was sat on the handbrake on a cushion, no seat belts in them days, and we'd have egg and onion sandwiches at the boat. And do you know what? I get it now. I've got three kids of my own, and feeding 5 years on a boat or in an airport or something is. So I always got it, but he'd always make these sandwiches in a big ice cream tub, and there'd always be egg and onion. And I'd be like, Jesus, can we not have something else? But now looking back, I tend to do the same thing.
Did you encounter any anti-Irish prejudice, especially with the Birmingham pub bombings from the 70s? Did that cast a shadow over your youth at all?
Well, not really, because I was born in 77, and when were the bombings? Was it 74? Was it November 74? I think so. So it had happened by the time I came along. I haven't chatted to my brothers and sisters about it, but I remember my mum and dad telling me that when it happened, they suffered dogs abuse from the customers coming into the pub. They come in early one night, and they give my dad a load of abuse, and saying it was all language like, look what your lot have done, and you effers have done this, and it wasn't nice, but my dad was well able to take care of it, and in them days the built pubs, there'd always be a big bar, a decent sized lounge, and then a wee snug, and the snug would open later in the evening, and he took him into the snug, and he gave him a right telling too. He said, listen, I've got a family, wife and kids up there, and he said, I've nothing to do with any of that, I'm just over here earning a living same as you, so we'll have less of that. And they never said a boo to a goose after that. I think they apologised actually, and it was scary times, tough times, and all through the 70s and 80s and stuff. It wouldn't have been nice now, but I missed all that, because I was born in 77, so thank God it wasn't so bad. But I remember when my parents first come over that they suffered a fair bit of abuse, especially in London when they moved to Twickenham and stuff, and when they were working on the buses, I think my mum and dad were in different depots, and my mum's boss, he hated Irish people. He really hated them, and he sacked her, and he made up some excuse saying that she wasn't tall enough to be a conductor or something like that. And she got home and told the old fella, and he wrote a letter like he did in them days, and it was all smoothed over, and she got reinstated, and it was fine. But I remember him telling me, my dad, like he said, when he first moved over, they were looking for digs, and in the Birmingham Mail or in the London papers, every advert for digs said no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, and he couldn't get his head around that at all. He thought it was awful. But so in reference to that, I've 3 T-shirts at home saying more blacks, more dogs, more Irish. So.
Were you taken to Irish music or Irish dancing lessons as a kid?
Do you know what? I wasn't, because I'm the youngest of 6 children, and every one of us had our own job in the pub. So there wasn't time for that really. When my parents from Northern Ireland, and the poverty, like everyone was struggling, in the 50s, and they were born in the 30s, late 30s, but everyone struggled. But in Northern Ireland, I think it was particularly hard because there was no economy, and everyone lived off the fat of the land, as it were. Everyone had their own farms and stuff like that. So my parents really struggled growing up, and their parents did, and their parents did. So when my dad decided to move to England for a better life, he meant it. He wanted to work, and that was it. It was all about the work. So, back in them days, the pubs would shut at 3, do you remember, and open again at 7, and I'd come home and I'd be mad to be playing pool, with my brother, and he'd say, well, there's a few glasses need washing, get the bottling up done, empty the bottle skips, and I'll give you a few games of pool. And that was it. I'd literally come home from school sometimes, and me and my sisters, we'd dump our bags, and we'd go straight into sweeping up the fag ends and clearing out ashtrays, and we all had jobs. Mine was me and my wife laughed, like Lainey's English, and she said she didn't have that kind of upbringing, and she said, do you remember doing this as a kid? And I said, no, I was bottling up, you know, and that was serious. Every Saturday I'd be downstairs bottling up, and I could tap a barrel by the age of 7. I don't know if you know what that means, but the traditional ales, right? They come in these big barrels, I think the 32-gallon barrels, and my brother would get it up onto the step for me, and you'd put a tap into it, like a plastic tap, and screw the pipe onto it, and I would tap the barrel, and then you'd have to ventilate it, and you'd vent it again and put a little peg in it and stuff like that. And I was doing all of that kind of stuff, cleaning pipes with my dad, and you know, but I was always downstairs. I loved it. You know, I was chatting to the customers all the time, and you know, I loved it. And I didn't think any of it. I didn't think anything of it at all until one day I went to school and I heard someone talking about pocket money, and I said, "What's that now?" He said, "Pocket money." I said, "What do you have to do for that?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "Hang on, you get money for nothing?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how much do you get?" He said, £1 a week. I said, £1 a week? I said, "You're joking." So I went back to the old fella. He was having a sleep after the pub shut at 3 o'clock. I said, Dad, can I have some pocket money? And he says, yeah. He says, you can. So downstairs, a few more glasses need washing. There's a bit of bottling up. Empty the skips and come and see me. So I did all that. And he gave me the bit of change out of his pocket. It must have been about 26p or something. So that was my introduction to pocket money. But but we loved it. You know, we didn't know any different. And it was a real family business and a family pub. It was great. But my dad actually was a drummer in a Cayley band called the Ramblers in Fermanagh, and it's ironic because I didn't even know that, but they were giving out, like at the time that when I was at school, they were doing drum lessons, and I didn't know my dad had played the drums in a band, and I fancied learning to play the drums, so I went through school playing the drums, and still play a bit now, you know, and obviously the spoons, bit of percussion, bit of the bodhrán. But yeah, it was, you know, his brother, Uncle Mickey, he was in the band as well. He was a great musician, brilliant accordion player, and, you know, tin whistle and what have you. So yeah, it's what you did back in the day. That's what I did.
How did you first get into acting?
Well, that's quite a long story. So I didn't do too well at school, and I didn't know what I was doing. I remember so we'd moved from Bartley Green, the pub called the Baylor Hay, to St Teresa's. So I went to a different secondary school than I should have gone, that all my friends were going to. So I went to this school in Wednesbury, and I didn't know anyone there at all. And I missed. My dad was bad with his heart, and so it's a genetic thing. His parents were, and his brothers had bad hearts and stuff. And I knew he'd had a heart attack before, and he was. I missed the coach on the first day of school, and he dropped me into school, and he was sweating like profuse, like just coming out of him, like dripping off his nose. And I touched his face, and it was freezing, stone cold. And I walked into school crying my eyes out the first day at school, and I didn't know anyone. And that was the Monday. On the Sunday, he took a heart attack behind the bar in St Teresa's and died. So he was definitely ill. So the reason I'm telling you that is that the school wasn't a very kind of happy time for me. I was in a new school, and there wasn't very many Irish people there as well. It's not a very Irish kind of borough. So I'd moved to Sandwell. We were living in West Bromwich, which is in the borough of Sandwell. And there wasn't a fat lot of Irish, and certainly wasn't many at our school. So I struggled a bit academically. I was always good, and got on well with the teachers. I was always a bit of a clown, a bit of a mouth in the class, but I was never disrespectful and stuff like that. But I just wasn't interested in the studying. But anyway, I struggled through my GCSEs, but then I got into sixth form and I did my A levels, and eventually I got into through clearing onto a degree course to study business in Northampton. So I did business studies for 4 years, and it was a sandwich course. You'd do your third year as work experience in an office, for a company, and I did that, and I remember thinking by the end of it, this isn't for me. I'm not cut out for this. I really aren't. And you go away to Ireland for a week and come back to 200 emails, and that stressed the hell out of me. I couldn't do that. So anyway, I thought I'd go back and finish the degree, because I'd got into so much debt and I'd worked so hard. So I thought, no, I really need to finish this. So I finished it, and I got a 2-1, and I was great because, you know, from struggling with GCSEs and doing badly in my A-levels and just coasting through university, by the time I got to the final year, I'd sussed it out. I'd worked out what I need to do, how to study, and yeah, I got a 2-1, so I was delighted with that. But I didn't know what to do with it, and so anyway, I thought I'd go travelling with my friends, and we all had the injections, and which is hilarious because I met my wife and she'd been to a lot of exotic places, and she found out I'd had all these injections, but the only place I'd ever been is Ireland. So she said she thought it was hilarious. I'd had yellow fever, you know, you name it, I'd had it. But anyway, so I think we were a couple of weeks away from travelling, and I was out on the buildings with an Irish crowd called Brennan's. I was still in Northampton at this point. I was doing all the groundwork and all that kind of stuff. I was having a great crack with them. Yeah, it was good. But I got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning from my mum in tears saying my brother had died in his sleep. Yeah, he was only 32 years of age, and he had diabetes. He was a diabetic, but he got pneumonia in his sleep, and he just went. You know, it was the most shocking thing ever, and it broke my mum's heart, broke all our hearts really, because we were really close family, and yeah, it was just a real shame. So I put off the travelling. I went straight home to my mum, and I stayed with her for about a year, and I just didn't know what to do, and I was sad. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just, you know, and like when I look back at it, those 2 deaths. You know, I'd had no counselling from my dad, and I was only 10 years of age, and then that happened to my brother. God, it was tough, and you know, I didn't know what to do. And then I was working in a clothes shop called Reese. There's a load of them in London. I was working in this clothes shop, and we'd get actors coming in that were rehearsing or performing at the Birmingham Rep. And I got chatting to this fella, and I thought, I think I'd love to do this. I think I could do it. And I went home one night, and I got out the yellow pages, as you did in them days, and I looked up drama schools in Birmingham, and the first one that come up was Birmingham School of Speech and Drama. And do you know what? It was great that was the one, because that's like a really accredited school. It's got a brilliant reputation, and there are other schools that aren't at the same level. So it was lucky that I found that, and so I phoned them up. And a lovely fella called Roger Frank answered the phone. He's not with us anymore, but I said, I'm thinking about doing a bit of acting. And he said, oh, right, okay, how old are you? And I told him I was like 21, 22, something like that. And he said, well, why don't you come along to one of our Tuesday night classes for adults? And I said, yeah. So I went along, and we all stood in a circle and did this big vocal warm-up. And the teacher, a great guy called Steve Eagles, he said, right, Nigel's new today, so where is he? And someone said, yeah, he's in Paris. And he said, what is he? And I'm thinking, what's going on here? He's a priest. And I was like, oh, it dawned on me then that we're doing improvising. And I remember thinking it now as clear as day. It's fight or flight, Nige. Get out of here or throw yourself into it. And that's what I did. So I just started improvising with this other actor, and obviously my instinct was to try and make it funny, and everyone's laughing and stuff. And I remember having a cigarette with Steve, the teacher, after, it was a couple of weeks into this, and he said, I used to smoke then, we're having a cigarette, and he said, you should be looking at this full time, you know. I said, really? Yeah, I'm thinking about it, you know. And I said, but I don't know how to do it. And he said, well, you want to do full-time training at this drama school. And he said, I can help you find a couple of speeches. And so that was that. He helped me find a couple of speeches. You know, that's what you do. You find a classical monologue and a modern one. And I went, and I didn't get in. They said, you know, you're not ready yet because you're obviously new to this, but there's something definitely showing a lot of potential there. And they were great, Birmingham, where they said, right, go away, read this, give me a reading list, read all these, watch as much theatre as you can. There's a summer school happening, it's a 2-week intensive, get on that, do that, and come back and audition in 6 months' time. So I did that, and they offered me a place on a 3-year course, but they didn't want me to do it. They said, you've done a lot of work in a short space of time here, more than we thought you'd do. We think you'd be better on the postgraduate course, which is a lot more intensive. It's a shorter course, but you're with people your own age, and we think you'd be better at that. So I auditioned again, so this is my third audition. And then I got a scholarship, and because I kept working, kept grafting, tunnel vision, I knew then that that's what I wanted to do. And I got in, and with a scholarship, and it was just like that for me. I was like a sponge, and I just loved it there. I was learning. I felt like I'd arrived, Andy. I felt like I'd arrived. I found what I wanted to do, and I was happy as a pig in muck. And then you have a what do you call it? A showcase at the end of it, and where all the agents are invited to, and all the industry personnel. And I had a rake of them after me, and it was great. Yeah, so I had my pick, and then that was it. Yeah, that's how I started.
What was your first acting role?
It was a commercial. I went for this commercial. So these days, when young people go into acting and they get an agent, you get sent for commercial auditions because the money's great, pro rata, short gigs, day or two's work and good money and stuff. Well, it was good money back in the day. It's not so much now, but a lot of young people would be going up for commercials. So I went for this KFC commercial, and I got it. The first audition I went for, and I got it. So I was dressed as a bunny rabbit, and it was. That was it. I was doing commercials then for the first 3 years, I think. I became a bit of a cash cow for my agent for commercials, but it was good training.
How did Peaky Blinders come about for you?
Well, that came much later. I'd already done a fair bit of telly by then. So after 3 years of commercials, I said to my agent, I need to be doing some good telly here, and I'm not getting seen for good quality theatre and film and TV. So things changed then. I did my first telly, which was DL and Pascoe, I don't know if you remember it, with Warren Clark and Colin Buchanan. And then I did shows like Doctors, which is set in Birmingham anyway, and I did a couple of soaps, small parts in soaps like Corrie and Emmerdale and those things. And then so I knew Peaky's was happening, and I was upset not to be seen for it, especially coming from Birmingham. And then when I watched the first series, there was no Brummies in it. So I couldn't get my head around that. And then it wasn't until the fourth series that I got an audition for a small part, but it was a nice part as a policeman in it. And I got it, and I had a great time. I had a scene with Adrian Brody on the bridge there, playing a copper. It was one of my first forays into playing coppers, that was. But and Aidan Gillen was there, and I got shot on the bridge. Great crack it was. It was unlucky not to be working with Cillian Murphy. He wasn't in that day, but he wasn't in that scene. But we had a great time. It was really good.
Are you a fan of the show, being a Brummie?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. I'm looking forward to the film coming out now. That's in post-production now, I think. But yeah, I met Stephen Knight, who's a lovely fella, at an awards ceremony, and he was singing my praises, and but I've already done it, so I can't do it again. but yeah, no, it's brilliant, and the cast is amazing. It's great, I think.
So from Peaky Blinders, tell us about the roles that followed. Obviously, Line of Duty was a big one for you.
Well, before then, I'd done quite a lot of comedy. So I'd done The In-Betweeners. I was in the pilot episode of that, and I was doing a fair bit of comedy because I was in an improv group with my wife, who was my girlfriend then, and we were doing a lot of improv and doing gigs, in pubs and stuff like that. And I did so I did The In-Betweeners, then I did Peep Show, and then I did The Life of Riley, and later on I did Alan Partridge and Count Arthur Strong. So I was doing good stuff. But then I think I auditioned for a policeman in a show called Line of Duty in 2010, so it was a while back then. And my agent phoned me up and he said, I need a favour. I said, what's that? He said, would you go back up to Birmingham for an audition and get yourself up there? I said, yeah, of course. What's it for? He said, it's for a thing called Line of Duty. He said, but the writer is a big deal. He's done a lot of stuff, and he told me what he'd done and all that, and he said, it's great writing. So it's obviously Jed McCurrier. So I said, yes, send me the script and I'll have a look. And I got home and opened my emails and I started reading this script. And me and Lainey were living together there. I went, Lainey, come down and read this. And I'll tell you what, the first couple of pages, and I showed her, and she was like, bloody hell, you've got to get this. And then I showed her my character's lines, and it was perfect for me. I thought, I can nail this. This is I'm really right for this part. And you know, it's important as an actor, you see parts and you kind of know instantly whether you're right for it. But some of them jump out at you and the lines just roll off the tongue and you think, yeah, I know exactly what to do with this. I know exactly how to do this. So I put a suit on. I actually locked myself in a room for a whole weekend. A friend of mine come and helped me and we went through it, we worked on it and we filmed it and did it again. So I really grafted on it. And then I put a suit on because he's a detective and I went up to Birmingham and I felt great, felt really confident. And it was brilliant. Then they called me back the next week. So I had to get the train back up and it was brilliant. Yeah, and then I got it. And then that was a great juggernaut for me because I got 3 series out of that over 12 or 14 years and it did me well. Oh God, it was great. So when we first did the first series, you do a table read with everyone and you get to meet the other cast and find out who the heads of departments are, and hair and makeup want to look at you and see how they're going to make you look and stuff like that. And I love going to them because you get to see who you're working with and what it's all about. And I walked into the room. I didn't know who was going to be in this, so you don't really get told beforehand unless they announce it. Who's leading it. And I walked in. I seen Adrian Dunbar, and I thought, bloody hell, it's Adrian Dunbar. And he's from Inniskillen, which is 20 miles away from Rosslea. So we're both from Annamen, so I thought this is great. And he's an ambassador actually for Inniskillen Gales, and I like Rosslea Shamrocks, so we had stuff to talk about already. And then Vicky McClure walks in. I was like, blimey, this is England's one of the best bits of telly I've ever watched. And then Martin Compston, I knew who he was, and big Celtic fan like ourselves. So it was great. And I remember the first scene with Dunbar. We were lining up and we were looking at a drain, looking for evidence in this drain. And it's my first ever scene. And he wasn't saying anything, and he just looked at me and he says, "Cheers, old bitch, smoke out of your head with raps." And I thought that was great. That was a great icebreaker, and I just started laughing, and But it was great. They're all brilliant. They're all really, really good to work with, and lovely people as well.
Three Little Birds was also a huge success, in which you played the role of Dougie. Could you relate to that Windrush storyline from the show being set in the Midlands, where you're from? Because the Irish and the black communities both experienced a great deal of prejudice back in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. And very similar backgrounds, very similar. Obviously we didn't come over on a Windrush ship, but it was tough. Yeah, people coming over to work, for a better lives, and but it was a great show. So Lenny Henry wrote that, and it was only a small part, but it was after lockdown, and there wasn't a lot going around, and it was one scene. But I liked the character, and I thought, yeah, I'll go for this. And so I auditioned for it, and then they recalled me, and I went and met them, and then the next thing I know, I'm in 4 episodes in about 25 scenes. So they really developed the character, and it was great. It was such a good thing and it was all shot around Birmingham and the Midlands and the Black Country and stuff, and. There was lots of Midlands-based actors like myself, and yeah, it was a lovely thing to be part of, especially with the content, and the whole kind of theme of it was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, which really resonated with me, as we said before. And it was a shame because they axed it after 1 series, and I remember running into Lenny at a thing I was presenting, and I was presenting it, and he was presenting an award to someone, and he called me to one side. He said, "Oh, Nigel, great to see you." He said, "I'm working on series 2 now," and he said, "Dougie's got a hell of a lot more to be doing in that." And then ITV axed it, and
what a shame.
It was a real shame because that's happened to me twice now. It's a killer for an actor, that is. You work hard and you struggle and you're out of work, and then you get a good gig. And then you think it's going to run, and then they axe it. But I think The Guardian give it 1 or 2 stars. I don't think that helped, even though the ratings were good. But it's just one of them things, just not meant to be. And you move on to the next one, don't you?
Tell us more about your latest venture, High Hoops.
So High Hoops, great little show. It's for CBBC, so it's aimed at early teens, and it's about a girls' basketball team. They play 3-on-3 basketball, and I'm the basketball coach, who's clearly not very good at what he does, but he's a lovable character. Maybe a bit like Baldrick without the dirt, I would say. But yeah, it's great. So we filmed a series of that last year, and it was a huge success. The BBC loved it, and they greenlit another one before it was even aired. So we've done that, and we're hoping it's gonna run, but we'll see. Fingers crossed.
And another little bird tells me that you're starring in a brand new cop drama called The Blame alongside Michelle Keegan.
That's right, yeah. So that started shooting last Monday, and I begin 22nd, I think, in a couple of weeks. Yeah, that's a great show. It's based in it's a cop show. Michelle Keegan's a DI, and Douglas Booth is her co-lead. Both brilliant, lovely people. I met them at the read-through. They're great. And yeah, I've got a nice part in that. I'm in most of the episodes, so looking forward to get shooting on that.
Right, some quick fire questions now, as is a tradition, on a drop of the hard stuff. First of all, Guinness or lager?
Oh geez, I like them both. I love Guinness. I like them both, but I'd be a Guinness man. But I'm a Guinness snob now, so you know what I mean. I can't drink the bad stuff.
Villa or Birmingham City? I think I know the answer to this.
Come on, it's Villa. I've got a season ticket.
Celtic or Rangers? I think I know the answer to this as well.
Celtic.
Do you remember when Villa played Celtic in the Champions League last season, and when some Villa fans, probably you were one of them, I'm sure you were, I've seen you online, showed their support also for Celtic? A load of keyboard warriors seem to lose their marbles online and give those fans a lot of stick.
Yeah, well, I was actually at that game.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have missed that game. That's the one and only time I have and ever will buy a half and half scarf, and I've got it up on the wall in the house, and it was great. It was great to be there, and I was torn because I was in the Villa end, and I could see I wanted to be in the away end, and it was brilliant, but there was a lot of animosity there between the Villa and Celtic, and a lot of the Celtic guys were in hospitality, and a lot of them celebrated when they scored, and I think you should be able to do that in hospitality. It's a bit different from being in the stands and stuff. And there was a bit of aggro and a few keyboard warriors, and people come on, what people are like, and they just don't really understand the cultural link between growing up in a city like Birmingham and supporting a team like Celtic, through your Irish roots. But it's just one of those things,
I mean, having two clubs is an Irish prerogative, isn't it? It's usually clubs like Villa, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, Man United, then Celtic. It's a cultural thing for us. Why is that so hard to understand for some people?
I don't know, but I'll never change anyway. I love Villa and I love Celtic, and I used to. So I started going down to Villa when my dad took over St Teresa's, because it was at the top of Aston Lane, which is where right close to Villa Park. So it was about a mile away really, and it was quite interesting because my brothers, growing up in South Birmingham, are both Birmingham City supporters. So I was the last to come along, and I supported Villa, and I used to go to the games. But in St Teresa's, so a lot of the Celtic fans would, when they're in Europe, would stop off at St Teresa's on a Sunday on their way to the games, and it was brilliant because they'd park the coach at land, and 30 or 40 or 50 of these Celtic fans would just get off with flags, tricolours and everything, and they'd just put all the flags up around the room and be singing songs just for like 3 or 4 hours, and I'd get stuck into a rake of pints, and it was the best crack ever. And through that I started going to a few games. So at that time Parkhead was being made an all-seater stadium, so all the games were at Hampden Park, if you remember. I did manage to get to an Old Firm game, and it was literally half and half, so the atmosphere was great, and we won 2-1. We used to drink in this great pub called the Brazen Head. Remember it in Gorbals? In the Gorbals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And half of the roof would be covered in GAA jerseys, and half of them would be Italian. It was the Italian-Irish pub, wasn't it?
That's right. It was a Glaswegian Italian family.
That's it.
Who owned that.
And it was great, great. And the bands. What was the name of one of the bands who used to play in there? Air Rogue, that's it. Air Rogue could be playing as you walked in, and it was just great crack. And there's just something about the Scottish football, like we love our football in Birmingham and London and that, but the Scottish live for it. You know, it's different gravy up there. It really is.
Do you feel that anti-Irish sentiment is still bubbling away under the surface and never really went away? I do. I see it all the time on social media, people absolutely losing it over a footballer maybe not wearing a poppy, or someone who shows support for Celtic or Ireland.
I think, I don't think it ever went away, but I think it's a lot better now than it used to be, and it's a lot more accepted. And just there's so many people with Irish roots, you know, second generation. Look at us where we are now. You know, it's something I'm really proud of and that I embrace. So, but I touch wood, I've never experienced or encountered anything bad. You know, I've been called, you know, a thick paddy and all this kind of stuff. It just roll. You know, it doesn't bother me. Do you know?
Anyway, Irish whiskey or Scotch whiskey?
Jameson's, every time.
Barry's tea or Lion's tea?
Barry's tea, Kimberley biscuits, silver mints, Clonakilty sausages and pudding. I'm a purist.
Now, another little bird tells me you play the spoons. Did you bring them along, Nigel?
Do you know something I did?
I've got the whistle.
Have you?
Right, come on then, mate.
1, 2, 3.
Now, do you fancy a wee one after that?
Oh, jeez, I would.
Here we go. Slauncher. Cheers, buddy. Great having you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Slauncher, everyone.
That's good stuff.
Mighty.
Fill up your tanker when times they get rough, and if they get tough, take a drop off